Welcome to the third episode of our series, Before Salahuddin. In our previous episode, we uncovered the myth of Salahuddin as a lone hero, highlighting the often overlooked contributors whose efforts were instrumental in shaping the remarkable generation that produced him. Today, we journey back nearly a century before Salahuddin's time to explore the Seljuk era, a period marked by the first organized efforts to reform and strengthen the Muslim world, driven largely by Seljuk political leadership. While this politically led initiative was sincere, it ultimately failed. Yet, from this failure, key individuals emerged who recognized the limitations of relying on such centralized efforts and charted a new path toward a deeper and more lasting transformation. The Seljuks were a powerful dynasty that ruled much of the Islamic world about a century before Salahuddin's time. They arrived in Baghdad in the 11th century, rescuing the Abbasid Caliphate from a coup and the growing threat of the Fatimid dynasty, a rival state with both military and ideological ambitions. The Fatimids weren't just challenging the Islamic world with armies, they sought to reshape its very beliefs. The Seljuks realized that defending Sunni Islam required more than swords. They needed scholars, thinkers, and institutions to counter the Fatimid challenge intellectually and spiritually. This sparked a unique collaboration between the Seljuk rulers and a group of Islamic scholars known as the Shafi'i Asharis. These scholars and reformers didn't just debate ideas, they took action. They built schools, most famously the Nizamiya schools, named after the visionary Seljuk vizier Nizam al-Mulk. These institutions became centers of learning and reform, spreading Islamic principles and uniting a fragmented society. But who was Nizam al-Mulk? Nizam al-Mulk was no ordinary leader. For 30 years, he dedicated himself to supporting scholars, uniting efforts and shaping a brighter future for the Islamic world. A man of profound faith and remarkable humility, he welcomed all schools of thought, fostering an environment of inclusivity and mutual respect. His council was a vibrant assembly of distinguished scholars and jurists whose insights he valued deeply. When questioned about the considerable time he spent with them, some suggesting it was a distraction, he responded with unwavering conviction. "These scholars are the beauty of this world and the hereafter. If I even had them sit on my head, it would not be too much of a burden." He is viewed by many historians as the most important statesman in Islamic history. Some of the policies implemented by Nizam ul-Mulk remained the basic foundation for administrative state structures in the Muslim world up until the 20th century. Under Nizam al-Mulk's visionary leadership, schools flourished, scholars like al-Ghazali rose to prominence, and a renewed sense of purpose began to spread across the Muslim world. He entrusted prominent Ash'ari scholars with key roles in administration, the judiciary, and even the army, ensuring that governance was guided by intellectual and moral excellence. Esteemed figures such as Imam al-Juwayni, known as Imam al-Haramain, Abu Ishaq al-Shirazi, one of the most prolific writers of Islamic legal literature, and Abu al-Qasim al-Kushairi, celebrated for his masterpiece Al-Risala al-Kushairiyya, oversaw the affairs of the schools. Yet, this unity proved fragile. As the Fatimid threat waned, Seljuk leaders began to lose sight of their higher purpose, succumbing to worldly ambitions and turning their focus inward to pursue their own desires. Sultan Malik Shah, the Seljuk ruler, clashed with Nizam al-Mulk, accusing him of undermining his authority. Their alliance broke down, and in 1092 CE, Nizam al-Mulk was assassinated, some say on the orders of the Sultan himself. Regardless of the truth behind the assassination, his death marked the end of the alliance between the Shafi'i Asharis as an intellectual movement and the Seljuk administration as a political force. In the aftermath, only a handful of Shafi'i Ashari scholars continued to align with the Seljuks. However, as they assumed roles in positions of power, such as the judiciary, endowments, and teaching, their focus began to shift. What had once been tools for reform became ends in themselves. These scholars gradually moved away from their role as reformist preachers, transforming into sectarian professionals who flattered the ruling elite to maintain their positions and preserve the gains of their group. In doing so, they engaged in rivalry and competition that undermined the very principles of unity and renewal they once stood for. Nizam al-Mulk's death marked a turning point. Without his vision, the alliance between scholars and the Seljuk state crumbled. Amid these developments, sincere scholars found themselves overwhelmed with resentment and disillusionment. Some withdrew into unproductive isolation, consumed by their frustration, waiting for divine judgment in the afterlife. But there were exceptions. Some scholars chose a different path. After the politically driven Seljuk reform efforts fell short, they stepped away from the corrupting influences of power, the doubts that surrounded them, and the allure of prestigious positions. Instead, they turned inward, focusing on self-reflection and renewal. They revisited the ideas and methods that society had abandoned, refining their understanding and approach. Only after this deep introspection did they return to the public sphere, ready to open a new chapter of reform. They advocated for what was right, stood against what was wrong, and began connecting directly with the people. They understood that true change wouldn't come from political maneuvering alone. It required reshaping society from its very foundations. This grassroots movement transformed communities, reigniting values and principles that had been forgotten. Through their tireless efforts, they created fertile ground for a new generation to emerge, a generation built on unity, resilience, and purpose. Stay tuned as we uncover the next chapter of this extraordinary journey. Meet the scholars who pioneered this transformative program and learn how their work laid the foundation for the rise of Salahuddin and his golden generation. The best is yet to come.